Alright guys, welcome back to Commando channel. In today's video, we're actually going to be reacting to the Royal Marines Commando test. And the reason why I'm doing this is a lot of you guys recommended this after seeing my reaction to the potential Royal Marines course. So you guys are saying this is a real deal, so I'm interested to check it out. I actually found all the videos on the Royal Marines YouTube channel. So we're going to check all these tests out. I did a little bit of research just to see what they consisted of. And they seem pretty rough, so hopefully these videos do justice as to how rough they actually are. But we're gonna get right into it, check them out, and yeah, I'm excited. So let's do it. Okay, so the first test is the endurance course, and from what research I've done, it seems a little bit similar to the endurance course that I actually did in the Marines. And again, in the U.S. Marine Corps, we have the obstacle course, the confidence course, and the endurance course. And the endurance course is kind of like this, using your weapons and having your actual kit on doing it. The rest are kind of just for physical fitness. So it seems like it should be a little bit similar. But I wonder why the time limit is 73 minutes. If y'all could shed some light on that, if there's any specific historic event that it's actually tying into, because I'm interested why it's 73. It's very specific. Yeah, I thought they definitely need to mention the water part, because once you get all that kit soaking wet, it adds I don't know, maybe 10 pounds and an extra level of misery. So it definitely needs to be said that the water is definitely included in that. But yeah, it looks pretty miserable, especially if it was cold this day. And the UK doesn't get too warm from what I've heard from my buddies over there. So that seems like that might mess with your mind a little bit. Awesome. So I'm not gonna lie, it looks kind of fun. There's obstacle courses, and whenever you do something really gross like that, it's just rough on the mind, especially when you're because I think this endurance course is 6 miles long roughly, and then you also do 4-mile run to the range. So the course would be cool, but then once you're all said and done and you have to run 4 miles soaking wet to the range, that's where it's gonna get really rough. And hopefully they have nice socks, because their feet must be getting torn up. But it's cool how they implement shooting. It'd be a crappy thing to fail, the actual shooting portion. But it's definitely important to do that stress inoculation. Put them under all the stress, and then go into the shooting, because then it really helps define those actual marksmanship skills. But yeah, that looked really cool. I honestly, if I had the chance, I would love to be a part of this. I know it's not as cool as it's going to look in a minute 30 video, but it definitely looks exciting. It'd be cool to be a part of, especially if you're sucking it with some other dudes that you've already been sucking with for several months. So test 2 is a 9-miler, and I think this is just it's 9 miles in 90 minutes, which is basically in that time you're gonna have to run the entire thing, which yeah, it's pretty standard. If you think you're gonna hike a a 9 miler in 90 minutes, you're gonna have a bad day. So I imagine what we're gonna see is a bunch of like running and shuffling just to make that time hack, which is understandable because it's a pretty rough time hack. So that's crazy. So I think it's really awesome how they're doing it like all together. It's definitely more encouraging, and it just feels a little bit easier when you're doing everything as a group. And when you have someone who's like the pace man the entire time, that definitely helps out. There's definitely a weird like mental game associated with having to do this all by yourself. So it's cool that they do it by themselves. You definitely get like a shared bonding experience over something like this crappy. But it's funny how with their water breaks, the water breaks are timed too. Like the time keeps going while they're stopping for water. But yeah, that'd be rough. But doing it together would be, I don't know, it'd be a cool experience. Again, I would love to try all this, but yeah. Unfortunately, doing this for a YouTube video doesn't seem realistic, just doing it by myself. But if any of you guys wants to invite me over, by all means, I'm down. Yeah, so definitely mentioning that there's different terrains is a big deal, because when you go from one terrain to another, your feet are accustomed to like the foot movement needed for that terrain, and when you're constantly switching it up, it kind of gets you out of like that I guess you would call it like the autopilot. So you're like focusing on all this different terrain. You need to make sure you're not twisting your ankle or anything. So that's also pretty rough, but it's cool how they're sort of finishing like going over this bridge and everything, going past like civilians and other people who aren't trying to be commandos. So I think that'd be pretty encouraging to sort of finish off like that, if you made it that far. But yeah, that looked cool. It looked very rough. Not gonna lie, I'm getting like pumped up watching this because I understand that that's definitely going to be extremely rough if you're actually doing it. So the next course is going to be the assault course, the Tarzan assault. And from my understanding, they test this. I think you need to do it in like 5 minutes in like week 20 of training. But with this, you're doing the Tarzan assault course, and then I think another assault course in like 12, 13 minutes. We'll see the video and actually get all the information, hopefully. But yeah, we'll see how this assault course looks, because I actually haven't done too much research on what it actually looks like and what the obstacles look like. So should be interesting. Check it out. So right off the bat, 30 meters is insane. That's like super tall. I imagine earlier in the course, in the training, they go to places where they're experiencing high heights and testing those fears and whatnot. So this probably isn't the first time that they're seeing this, but if it is, and even still, even if you have a fear of heights, 30 meters is going to feel like you know, you're in the clouds. So it's definitely it'll definitely play a part if you're afraid of heights. It'll definitely add a little extra level of terror. So, being in the Marines and also being in the U.S. Army, I can see that a lot of these obstacles are similar to the things we do. Some of the obstacles are similar to stuff you do in the confidence course in the Marines, and then also some of them look like something you do at Ranger School or pre-Ranger School. So they're very similar looking. However, doing these in a time limit is definitely rough, because it's cool to, like, you know, do the courses and have a break and wait for other people to complete the course like in front of you. But when you're being timed, like, it's constantly pushing. So you get off one obstacle, you go to the other. But it definitely adds another level that I can't really attest to. We've only done timed obstacle courses, which are like super easy. And I've done a timed endurance course, but it wasn't timed in the sense that you have a time limit. It's timed in the sense that they time how long it takes you, so you can still go at your own pace. So it's interesting. I'm sure it's pretty brutal actually trying to do it all, but hopefully they're accustomed to the course enough and some of the obstacles enough that it's not too big of a deal. It's kind of just pushing through it, but it still looks fun. I love obstacle courses. I love doing stuff like that. I wasn't too big with heights in general, so doing like some of the stuff, it gets kind of taxing mentally, but I mean, I'm kind of over it now. Once you do it enough, you're kind of over it. But it looks fun. It just looks miserable, especially I can imagine if they were like cold and trying to do all this stuff when their hands are like freezing. That could get pretty rough. that's that's definitely a way to finish. That looks pretty rough, especially once you're all like wet and sweaty and you have your gear and your hands are already like slayed. But you know, since they have their rifles on their backs, that they're doing stuff and constantly their rifles probably hitting them in the back of the head. It just adds like something. It's really annoying when you have a rifle doing anything like that, like slung behind your back. Obviously, in real life, if you actually have to do it, you kind of get over it. But when you're being timed, it's just like another thing to annoy you. You know, your rifle constantly hitting you in the back of the head and whatnot. But that looked brutal. Not gonna lie, a lot of this stuff just looks rough, and it's cool that they're doing a lot of the stuff together though. And I'm sure they've already bonded doing all this training for up to this point. So they're kind of like halfway over it, but at the same time, they're going to be very serious about this because it is the last thing that they need to do to earn the Green Beret. So definitely interesting to check this out. Okay, so the last test is going to be the 30 miler. So I don't know what this is going to be like. In the Marines, to pass the School of Infantry, you have to do 12 miles, I think in like 3 hours roughly as a group. You kind of do all of it as a group. And you have a couple water breaks, and it's just very slow. It's very easy. The pack is maybe like 50-60 pounds from what I remember. It's pretty heavy. I mean, but you kind of work up to it. You get over the weight after a certain point. And in the Army, the infantry standard is like 12 miles in 3 hours with like a 35-pound pack. So it's definitely something you need to train for. But for the 30 miler, like, that's something you really need to train for. So I'm curious to check out this video and see how they actually do it, because in the Army, doing your 12 miler is all individual effort. So you can get coming out whatever time you want. You don't need to like do it as a group and go that slow if you can go faster. So I'm curious to see how they handle it. But 30 miles is rough. The most I've ever hiked was I think 26 miles, and that was with like, I don't know, maybe like a 25-pound pack, and I was kind of just taking my time. So that took me maybe like that probably took me like 8 hours, and I think you have about 8 hours to do this. So we're gonna check this video and see if it's as rough as it actually sounds, because it does sound pretty rough. So that's something I didn't even consider. When we would do our 12 milers in the Marines and in the Army, it's like almost always on a road. You might go on like an unpaved road, but it's always like a road. You never have to work with like bogs or anything. So that'll definitely slow your pace up a lot if you're going through like mud or water. And of course, it was raining for them, before they started, while they're staging all their equipment. So that had to be miserable, especially if it was cold. But yeah, that's something I didn't even consider. The bog is definitely going to do it. When I did my 26 miler, it was kind of just on an unpaved trail the entire time through the woods, so it wasn't really too bad. But when you're adding like really thick mud, especially if it's like up to your waist, oh man, that's got to be brutal. So again, it's really cool how they're doing it like in a group. It definitely helps for sure. Anyone who's been in the military knows that if you're suffering in a group, it makes it an experience as opposed to just like torture, And I'd like to think that they had the chance to change their socks like multiple times, but I don't know. It's the Royal Marine Commandos. They might just love like ruining their feet. So I imagine their feet are feeling pretty good right now, regardless if they change their socks or not. So we're gonna finish this video up, but yeah, it looked as rough as I was thinking. Yeah, so that's what it's all about. That's definitely the best feeling whenever you're done sucking through everything and you earn, whatever it is you're going after. I can compare it to a couple things. Being in the Marines, you get your Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. But honestly, that was kind of a little bit of a letdown, because there was a few people that I thought shouldn't have been Marines that I went through training with, honestly. And, they ended up getting the same thing as me. But, in the Royal Marine Commandos, like everyone there definitely wanted that, and everyone there definitely earned that. But I can definitely appreciate, what it must feel like for them, especially going through, that much training and those rough obstacles, especially together. You definitely know that they all earned that green beret. But yeah, it was definitely cool to check these tests out. Obviously, they're extremely brutal, because they need to be there for earning your green beret in the Royal Marine Commandos, so they have to be pretty rough. But yeah, it definitely seems fun. I would definitely like to try it out at least. But I'm not going to try and take away anything from these guys, because they're definitely the real deal. They're hardcore. And anyone in the military can appreciate someone else in the military who's sucking, especially someone who's sucking a little bit more than they are. Or in their case, a lot of it more than what the U.S. Army does. But definitely cool to check them out. I appreciate you guys recommending it. I'm glad I was able to find some solid videos about it. And if there's anything you want to share about your experience with the Commando test, feel free to let me know, because I'm interested to learn a little more, especially actually having to have gone through it. If it was as fun or as easy or as as bad as you thought it was, yeah, just let me know. I'd love to hear it. But I appreciate the recommendation. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.